Can I have your name, please?
My name is Dr. Howard Kaye, and I'm from Poway, California.
Okay, and you could just look at me, ignore the camera.
Okay.
Just share a little bit about your wife with us, if you don't mind.
You know, my wife, it's very interesting. She was a person who was happy the day she was born. In fact, there's little journals. She has little journals as a child. And one of the greatest things when we were trying to go through some of my wife's belongings, we found how even at 9 years old, she was going to do this for this neighbor. Someone else needed a present. Someone else needed a favor. So these things started from a very early age. And then as she became an adult, it just became more and more for her to do things to help all people. She was a person who was like international, interdenominational. She just went to all different people. She'd find somebody who needed something, or she would talk to somebody. There was an incident once where a person says they moved to an apartment, they could just get their rent together, and I was just telling her they didn't have a bed for their children, so Lori bought them a bed, a mattress and things. And one of the most interesting things I thought was that when Lori died, we got a bill from the funeral parlor. And it was very interesting because it had a discount there of $4,000. And I called and said, I appreciate it, understand the circumstance. I thought that was very kind of you. You don't understand. Lori came to every Jewish funeral for 20 years and would read a quote or read a few lines and comfort people at every funeral. So we're not giving you a discount, we're giving her the employee discount for this. So there's a lot of things that Lori did that I never became aware of until people told me stories later. But to sum it up, we have like a peace pole in our front yard that she put up several years ago, and it says, "May peace prevail on the earth." And that was Lori's wish. So but she was also a type of person who believed in justice, she believed in law and order. And the situation is that when her life was taken like this, to me it was a stimulus for the world, because here you have a wonderful, beautiful person where there was really no boundaries of different religion, race, or color, but yet she went out to help everybody. She would just look for people and then help them. She would buy dinners, not just give money, but actually buy full dinners and give it to people who are homeless, or get them clothes that lived near her work. So the things she did were so beautiful, and it was taken away by a force that's just, really just the complete opposite of her. But probably the whole thing is to show that I think is that we need to change our perspective, because why do we want to lose more people like Lori? And that to me is the message, is that she was a wonderful person, she did great and wonderful things, and we shouldn't have instances in this country where people think that they have to build up so much hate that they have to take people's lives away.
What do you recall about that day?
Well, that day was a very special day because in our religion, it was Passover. And Passover is supposed to be a time of our celebration, not sadness. And it was the last day of Passover, which was special because that's a holiday. It commemorates the splitting of the sea. There was the Israelites left Egypt, and then they were at the sea, and then they crossed the sea. So it celebrates that day. But at the same time, it was also Shabbos, which is our Sabbath, and that commemorates the creation of the world by God when He rested. And so it was that day. And then in our synagogue, which is a Chabad synagogue, it also was a time when we pray that the coming of the Messiah might come. And they call that the Mashiach Seder. And then finally, Lori's mother had passed away of blessed memory in October, and she was making sure that she was going to be there on time to go ahead and say the prayers for the departed, which we call Yizkor. And so it was a very special and powerful day. Now, the men and women where we are basically we're separated. The women are on one side and the men are on the other. And a lot of men like to sit near the south corner because it has to do with the way a certain degree of spirituality. So I was at the opposite end and she was in the foyer. And so when I heard the shots, I could smell the cordite. You could smell it was very acrid. And then we had a gun at the synagogue. And that gun was, several people knew it was there, and I was actually the person who was in charge of it. And we made sure that there were people, like we had an ex-Army veteran who was a wonderful guy. He used to do demolition, so he was kind of fearless. And then we had another gentleman who was a border guard. So these were professional people. And I always said, if anything happens, you come to me and I'll pass the weapon to you because you are a professional. And that's what happened. With the shots rang out, John Morales came to me. I went into my bag where I had it. I gave him the gun. He ran out. And by then it was all over. So I didn't see anything. It was all over. The person had already taken off. And then we came out and we're looking at the thing, and the rabbi was wounded, and I told him to go to his office and get his gun just in case they come back, and people were running. Then there was a lady on the floor, and I didn't even know who that lady was. So then I said to the other gentleman, I said, let's go ahead and turn her over and examine her. And I didn't look at her face, but I could just see that already she had passed away. And then we said, okay, let's do CPR. And we had the AEM, we brought that over, it was flatlined. Then her face was distorted because she had passed away. So the situation, I didn't recognize her face at first. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, this was my wife. And then I fainted. Just seeing her, realizing what had happened, it was actually my wife was the one who had been murdered. And then I fainted. Then people came out, and fortunately people were even more shocked because they thought both my wife and I had been killed. And then from there, the professionals came, they took us, to the hospital. So I don't know the events that occurred right after that.
Wow. Our condolences to you. Where do you stand now? Why are you choosing to speak today to the members? Why are you choosing to kind of speak today to the members of Arizona?
Because I want people to know that in this world and in this country, especially at this time, with so much animosity between different groups of people, that we have to take the high road in life. Right now, it's like parents are fighting all the time. We're the citizens of the country of the children. They're hurting us. And so my message is to the people and the politicians, let's step back a little bit. Let's look at Lori's life and maybe dwell on things that Lori did. If a person maybe did a good deed, people used to laugh because Boy Scouts used to take little old ladies across the street. But you don't know how that little incident of taking a little lady across the street would stay with that person, maybe for the rest of their life. And just little things in life, giving a little bit to charity, doing a good deed, is my way of preventing bad things from happening. Because if you've done some good things, if you've done some good deeds, if you've had some positivity, then from there you'll remember that. It'll be inside of you. Right now, we've moved so far the other way of separation of the spiritual from the material. And when you just have a material world without spirituality, this is the result. We're in the 9 days of the time between the first walls of Jerusalem were breached twice, many centuries ago. And one of the reasons why is that people were not treating each other well. We believe there's a spiritual cause of this. And we're doing these things all over again. In the whole world, maybe, not alone this country. So the situations, we've got to turn it around. We have to turn it on a positive thing. And I don't really have the answers to that. People can talk about racism, anti-Semitism. They've studied it much more than me. But the only thing I could tell you is that one form of hatred just begets another. Anti-Semitism is the oldest of all hatreds in the world, but it just begets all the others. And my personal opinion is, unless the world deals with anti-Semitism, they're never going to solve the other hatreds.
And we just saw more hatred over the weekend.
Inevitable. Because Lori was the canary. The Jewish people have always been the canary in the coal mine. Then there was two, not just Lori. There were the 11 people in Pittsburgh. They're all holy people who were killed in synagogue. But the situation is this is just the beginning. And when the Jewish people are attacked, the whole world eventually started attacking each other.
And those are your thoughts with what we now
Right.
saw in El Paso and
Right, and we should have learned from Lori that, wait a minute, something's going wrong here. Let's look at Lori's way. Lori's way was the good deed, and she had the main theme of let peace prevail on the earth. And if people would have had that thought, how could they do these other things?
Is there anything else you want to add, or any other message that you want us to know?
Well, I think we just have to look at and examine our situations in our society, and I think from the standpoint of separation of church and state, we need to look at the logic of that. Granted, not everybody needs religion, but at the same time, religion's helped a lot of people, and to be able to have that as part of their lives. Not just going to church or synagogue, but actually in their school and other institutions, and actually seeing symbols would probably do more to prevent further crimes than all the other things that people have come up with. They're looking at everything but that. Oh, take away guns, modify this, do this. People are angry and they need to know how to deal with their anger. But if they had symbols that they could return to, it sounds simplistic, but in a generation before, we didn't have these problems. So that must be that what's happened is we had the total separation of the spiritual from the material world. And the material world by itself, for us human beings, doesn't work out so well. That's my message.
So your message today is really about peace and morals.
Right.
And
My peace.
spiritual.
Step back a little bit. You know, there's different things. Think about, you know, an alternative. You know, my whole thing, the simple answer would be for people just to do good deeds.
Were you surprised when you heard about the mass shootings that just happened over the weekend?
I was surprised and saddened, but I knew that if the world didn't understand what happened to Lori, that this might happen. It's very powerful, but someone has to say it.
And are you planning on doing more speaking events? Or
Well,
no?
I'm a full-time physician, and my mission in this world is to help my fellow human beings, and I'm very committed to that. And so I don't often have too much time to speak unless it's somebody who I personally know.
I see.
But I kind of think, you know, there's people who can give the message that I have much more professionally. And I think I'd rather hear them say the message.
But because of Lord, you want that message to be
Yes.
heard now more than ever.
Right, more than ever, once and for all.
Good? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That's the longest interview.
Thank you.